Well, it's a new year, and that means a whole new slate of MCU Phase 5 movies destined to disappoint people, as the Marvel movie money printing machine seems to be nearing the end of its days. Phase 5 stumbled out of the gate and hasn't recovered since. It's directionless, leaderless, devoid of intrigue, and it still doesn't have any overarching villain tying all of these formulaic, soulless movies together. Phase 5 has just been a slow-motion train wreck that's been going on for 2 years now. Needless to say, Marvel fatigue is at an all-time high, although I'm not sure if it qualifies as fatigue if everything they're putting out is mediocre at best. But mediocre might be too kind of a word for describing Captain America: Brave New World. Featuring the new Captain America that looks more like A-Train from The Boys, this formulaic, bland entry into the MCU brought us more weak villains, innumerable instances of characters inexplicably divulging their plans and motives to their enemies, and a big twist that was completely spoiled in all of the marketing for this film. But by far, the most offensive thing about Captain America: Brave New World is the title itself. This movie is not brave, it offers nothing new, and yeah, it does take place in a world, but it takes place in a world that feels unbearably stale, so even that part of the title is dubious. This Captain America movie isn't brave. It literally plays it safe at every turn and doesn't even attempt to push any barriers. It's certainly nothing new. It's the same bland, formulaic superhero film we expect with every MCU release these days. Hell, the Captain America actor Anthony Mackie even tried to distance Captain America from the America part of it. So in reality, I could argue that Captain is the only word in this title that's objectively accurate. And of course, that's ignoring the source of the subtitle Brave New World. Originally a quote from Shakespeare, but more well known as the title of the Aldous Huxley novel, Brave New World is a line spoken by someone to describe places of horrific circumstances and displaying that character's ignorance about those circumstances that allows them to feel optimistic about the dystopian place they find themselves in. And in no way, shape, or form does that describe anything that this movie put on screen. Clearly they just wanted to use a catchy, recognizable title without any regard to its meaning. They would have been better off sticking with the original title, New World Order. At least you could argue that that title makes some sense. But I'll talk more about why this movie struggles to even earn the moniker of mediocre after we recap Brave New World's story. So here come the spoilers. You've been warned. We begin the movie with Thaddeus Ross winning the presidential election. Ross is a former general and a former mustache haver, and was involved in the Incredible Hulk incident. But now he's a pill-popping president with an estranged daughter. 5 months later, Captain Falcon is in Mexico.
Falcon!
Tasked with eliminating Emilia Perez before the Oscars next month. And when there's a cartel involved, Gustavo Fring is never far away, so he's here too. Now going by the name Sidewinder, and he's in charge of the Serpent Society, a weird, goth, after-school club for kids with terrariums. Captain Falcon comes in and tells him this party is over, but Gustavo escapes and leaves Captain Falcon to deal with some big guy. He eventually beats the guy off, while his amigo, Captain Mexico, deals with the minions and retrieves unnamed MacGuffin number 1. Then some Special Forces guy walks in the room and gives Captain Falcon a really gay look before complimenting him. Captain Falcon takes Captain Mexico to meet the forgotten Captain America, Isaiah Bradley, an ex-super soldier who was forgotten because he was thrown in jail for being black or something. When their training session gets interrupted by a phone call from the president, the forgotten captain gets angry that Captain America is willing to work for him, as apparently his dementia-riddled brain forgot how the chain of command works. The captains take Bradley to the White House, where Captain Falcon meets privately with the president, who wants Falcon to rebuild the Avengers, but the Cap is reluctant. President Ross does a Silicon Valley-style tech presentation to world leaders about the discovery of adamantium, but mid-presentation, the forgotten captain goes crazy and grabs a gat and blasts at that foo of a president. All hell breaks loose as the room is full of secret assassins and some 90-pound girl starts beating people's asses with a chair like she's on Springer. Bradley runs but gets cornered and his dementia kicks in and he doesn't know what's going on and now he's going back to the clink. And some white cops run up and do some light police brutality for no reason. Then Captain Falcon meets with the president and his literal Mossad handler. I don't know if they're trying to make a statement with that, but I do know that President Kanye would never put up with it. And then President Ross tells Captain Falcon that he's no Steve Rogers for no reason. Captain Falcon meets with the imprisoned Bradley, who doesn't remember the attack at all. Meanwhile, Captain Mexico looks at security footage and realizes that the assassins were triggered by some kind of mind control. Later, when Cap is driving around, he gets ambushed by Sidewinder. The two fight for a while, but they take a short break so Sidewinder can twirl his mustache and tell the captain everything about who hired him, his goals, and just a lot of weird things that no one would ever say to their enemy. Captain Falcon wins the fight eventually and knocks him out, and gets a weird phone call from the weird, pimply Serpent Society Club president. After President Ross tries to salvage the international treaty he's been working on, the Mossad agent arrives at the prison complex just in time to see one of the guards go crazy and shoot two of the imprisoned assassins and then himself. When President Ford gets done doing Peloton on Air Force One, he gets a call from the Serpent Society Club president who's salty about having been imprisoned for so long. Captain Falcon and Captain Mexico go in search of a random military base out in the middle of nowhere for no real reason, and they break in real easily and find some old prison and laboratory that was used to brainwash the assassins, and Falcon finds records of Ross's medical treatments. Off in Japan, Ross is negotiating with the Japanese Prime Minister who's a real dick, and they don't reach a deal. After finding a song that's being used to control people's minds, the captains get confronted by a green-skinned dweeb whose brains are coming out of the top of his head, who we'll call Brainiac. Brainiac then explains all of his plans and motives to them for no reason. The two captains beat off the first wave of guards, and then the Mossad agent shows up and she beats off the next wave, and they all eventually escape. President Ross gets mad and smashes a table, and tells his advisors that America alone is going to control the adamantium. When Captain Falcon interrogates Sidewinder, he tells him of Ross's experimentation on Brainiac and that Ross promised to pardon him, which he never did. And Sidewinder tells Falcon all of this for no real reason. The captains head to Celestial Island where the adamantium was discovered, and Falcon informs the president of what he's learned before grilling the president about his medical history. Then two mind-controlled American pilots go rogue and attack the Japanese fleet, and Captains Falcon and Mexico step in to stop them, but Captain Mexico gets shot down. While this is going on, Brainiac calls the president again and tries to mess with his mind. Bucky the Winter Politician comes to visit Captain Falcon and gives him an inspirational speech before he leaves, and then the Mossad agent objectifies him. Then Brainiac shows up and kills the gay special ops guy from earlier for no discernible reason. After President Ross finally reconnects with his daughter, he heads out to make a speech at the Rose Garden, and during the press conference, Brainiac exposes Ross's dirty dealings through news article releases and leaked audio. While all that's happening, Brainiac confronts Captain Falcon to tell him even more of his plan for no reason, and the Marvel Universe is so lame now that no one even questions a guy with green skin and his brains bubbling out of the top of his skull walking around in broad daylight. At the press conference, the president gets mad and turns into the Red Hulk, and the Secret Service, looking to maintain the stellar form they've had for the last 7 months, opens fire on the president. Captain Falcon shows up and fights the president, and while that happens, the White House gets destroyed, which is clearly just thrown in there as blatant pandering to the Canadian audience. After some time fighting, Falcon gives Ross a speech about Ross's daughter on a horrible-looking CGI set, and the president chills out and goes back to normal. Then Falcon frees the forgotten captain, the treaty gets signed, and Captain Falcon heads to some seaborne prison where the president has resigned, accepted his sentencing, and is now in jail. But at least that moved his daughter to get off her lazy ass and come see him. And in the post-credit scene, Captain Falcon talks to Brainiac, who just says some shit to hype up the Avengers movies coming out over the next 2 years, and the movie comes to an end. Well, as I said before, for a movie called Brave New World, this movie was a whole lot of the same old shit. Like with just about every Marvel movie in Phase 5, it features a glaring villain problem. From the perspective of anyone not real familiar with the comics, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel to find enemies for their heroes to go up against. None of these villains carry the cachet needed to draw fans to see the movie, and no actor would be capable of making these characters intriguing given the weak writing behind these films. Sidewinder managed to get off one ambush before he was easily knocked out and taken captive. And Brainiac was just weird, lame, and boring. To be fair, it's not even this movie's fault, necessarily. One of the two major reasons Phase 5 of the MCU is floundering so hard is they still haven't brought in the big bad, the overarching villain for the Marvel heroes to rally against, and someone who can tie all of the film's stories together. We Was Kang got derailed by his legal issues, and they haven't introduced Doctor Doom yet in-universe. So without some Thanos for the Avengers to avenge against, each MCU film and series coming out now just feels like it's spinning its wheels toward nothing in particular, and only exists to try and keep the brand relevant. And for an MCU film, there sure was a real lack of funny moments or witty lines. There were maybe 2 or 3 throughout the whole film, and everything else felt pretty flat or too self-serious. So Brave New World was even lacking in one of the mainstays of Marvel movies. The action was okay, although about half of it was just Captain Falcon fighting nameless, faceless minions. And it didn't feature anything that felt fresh or new, and it certainly didn't make up for all of the movie's problems. Also, I kept seeing people refer to this as a political thriller. Well, it's only political insofar as some of the characters are politicians, and it's only thrilling if you somehow missed all of the other 34 MCU films. You're never on the edge of your seat waiting for the mystery to unravel. Sam Wilson's struggle to feel accepted as Captain America means fuck all, as there's no opposition to him taking up the shield in this movie. Everyone's motivations and evil machinations were explained ad nauseum at every turn. And the revelations about the president's dirty dealings with Brainiac carry all the weight of a throw pillow. And speaking of revelations, the big reveal that Ross was the Red Hulk was the most prominently marketed aspect of this movie. Everyone knew it was coming, so you're literally waiting for it, robbing his transformation of any shock or surprise. And he was in that form for about 7 minutes total, so it's not even a major part of the story. In the end, Captain America: Brave New World just leaves you feeling nothing, which is par for the course for the MCU now. As for how people are rating this latest Captain America, viewers are giving it a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I expect that figure to trickle down over the next week. On Metacritic though, fans have it at a 3.9, which feels much closer to reality. I'd give Brave New World about a 3.5 out of 10, leaving it solidly in Hatewatch territory. At the box office, Captain America looks set to haul in about $90 million in its first 4 days, which is in line with projections. But it would need to match that number for the next 3 weeks to turn a profit on its reported $180 million budget, a budget that makes this the second most expensive Captain America film behind Civil War. And no, what we got on screen doesn't look like a $180 million movie, but nothing these days looks worth these insane budgets. The MCU, perhaps since the beginning but certainly in its current form, is a blight on the film industry that stands as the height of mindless consumption. It feels directionless and messageless, it lacks characters that can fill theaters, it's grown oppressively stale, and it stifles creativity by forcing all of its films into the same formula that gets shat out on repeat. And Captain America: Brave New World was not brave, was not new, and was just another forgettable chapter in the twilight of that floundering brand. Did you have any real expectations for Brave New World? Can the MCU do anything at this point that would make you feel excited for it? Do you think they'll introduce Captain Canada in the next one? Let us know in the comments. Also remember to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to Hatewatchers for reviews of other current shows and movies. Thank you for taking up the shield to defend against the mediocre cinematic universe with us today, and we'll catch you on the next one.